Hello, and thanks for tuning in for another video review. Today I want to do a quick summary and chat about the second book of the Wheel of Time, which is The Great Hunt, which I just finished reading 2 days ago. So The Great Hunt, it was everything I expected and more, I guess. Again, I'm brand new to the Wheel of Time series, so this is all new to me. And after the first book, which was really felt like a prologue, now looking back at it, and again, some of my criticism of the first Wheel of Time book, The Eye of the World, was that it did feel like Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. It was just about the characters getting together as a group and coming together to start their journey. But now in the second book, we really are on that journey. So this book, I felt like we were in the world. Not that we weren't in the world before, but the world just really opens up and we see more of the world and much more that's happening with all the characters. So this book, as the name implies, The Hunt, is the hunt for the Horn of Valir. So this was, again, gives them a good task and a good focus of the book that we know we're going on this hunt. We assume we're going to find the horn by the end of it. But of course, things are going to happen on the way. So that splits our parties into two main groups, kind of like the first book where everyone gets split up and we follow different paths. This book was similar as we follow Rand and his group of the male characters who are on the hunt, while the female characters like Egwene and Nynaeve are off to the White Tower and getting their training in Aes Sedai. So one thing, speaking of that, of the training that I really liked that finally clicked, and I wrote this down as a note to myself, was as Egwene is learning how to channel, she's told to summon the void. And as we know in the first book, and every time Lan when Tam was in Lan or teaching Rand how to sword fight, they always talked about him summoning the void. So it finally was that aha moment when I was listening to this part where they're describing channeling the one power as summoning the void. And then, of course, up until this point, Rand has had this recurring channeling the void to control focus. And it was that, man, this is so cool that there was the foreshadowing of how Rand, of course, now he's the Dragon Reborn, but he was basically being conditioned to channel because I assume his father, Tam, knew what he was, of course. I'm sure that's going to be revealed down the road, but he was doing these things and training him in the blade this way as preparation because he's going to need it to channel himself as the Dragon Reborn. So cool, very cool moment when it finally sort of clicked in my head as Egwene was being trained. So through Egwene, you made the connection with Rand and the One Power. So very cool. I love that part and love kind of the world building that's led up to that. Of course, speaking of the guys, the other things that happened was Perrin, of course, is continuing to be cool in this book where he's communicating with the wolves and really delving into his wolf powers. So that's always cool to hear about this. Matt, not so much happened to him. He's more of a side character on this story still. We're, of course, trying to find the dagger and get him back, but he's still kind of relegated to third best male character. Speaking of the male characters, when Egwene and Elaine are training in the White Tower, one of the funny quotes that I wrote down was the quip that Rand sure does meet a lot of girls. I just thought that was hilarious because every time Rand is off an adventure, he's meeting a princess, he's meeting townfolk. That's one of the kind of recurring themes. So it was just funny that they called that out in the book as well. Other recurring characters that finally came back in my review of the first book, Eye of the World, I was sort of distraught to see Tom finally, not die, but he went off to finish the battle to hold things off that were happening in the first book. So in this book, when he was back, I was ecstatic to hear Tom come back. It did happen till the later half of the book, so it's not a huge plot point, but we do get some more of Tom's backstory. We see some of his motivations, a little more of his past. He doesn't really join the party, which I was hoping he would go on the adventure, but he does play a role, and then he leaves, and then he comes back again, which was so cool. He's at another scene, at this banquet scene, and it was just amazing to see Tom again. I'm sure others really like Tom. Tom was such a great character, so I was very happy to see him back in this book. The other cool recurring characters that came back with Loyal, I'm starting to like him more. Not that he wasn't bad the first time, maybe tainted by having watched season 1 of the Amazon Wheel of Time series. I haven't seen season 2 yet, but in season 1, Loyal was just, he was there, okay, he was there. But this one, because it's the second book in the long range series, we're introduced to more of the Ogier culture, more of Loyal's being basically the rebel Ogier, which is of course funny because he is, to the reader and to the characters, he's such a slow moving character, but he's actually a fast moving rebel in Ogier culture. So very interesting to see him being that rebel character in his own way when we learn more about the Ogier culture. So I like that part. And of course, going the ways was very cool when they travel with Loyal, or not really the ways, but the other world. I'm not sure if it's the ways, maybe I'm getting confused, where they start seeing alternate realities. And in the audiobook, it's a little jarring because there's a lot of flicker, flicker, flicker as Rand is going through the different realities that might be. But I was, of course, jumped out at like, wait a minute, what's happening? And then, of course, realizing that we're seeing through Rand an alternate version of what might be. So once you kind of like get in the headspace of, oh yeah, this is not what's actually happening, we're in an alternate reality. It was very cool, and I'm sure this will be played more with in the future, but it's a great concept, and I really liked this whole, what they're doing, the ways in the other world, and how they seem to see the future by seeing alternate versions of the future. So this is a semi-older book, in the 90s, but it's definitely that multiverse, which is, of course, been around in Marvel as well for years, but it's just coming to the mainstream. So I really like this way of looking at alternate realities and exploring different possibilities, and then Rand using that knowledge of what could be to kind of shape how he is in the present, if that makes sense. So really cool there. I like that part. Speaking of the conflict, was the Shan-Chen, where they are this other, nation country, I guess is the best way to say it. So again, as I mentioned before, the world is definitely expanding now in the second book, now that we're in the Great Hunt. So learning about the different cultures of the Wheel of Time was very cool. They had their own society, that the fact that they, enslaved the Aes Sedai and can cut them off from the true source was a very cool way to kind of curb that power of the Aes Sedai, that they can cut off, and they basically enslave them and use them as their pets. So it was really cool to kind of see their culture, and we're described a little bit of how they're riding these beasts in the town. So this is only the second book of a long series, so I can't wait to see more cultures and see more of Robert Jordan's imagination, because just the Shan-Chen were a very cool antagonist for this book. After we're into the Shan-Chen, this is in the 3/4 of the way through the book, it did seem to wrap up very fast, which was my criticism of the first book, that all of a sudden, the first book, they're at the Eye of the World, they have the Battle of the Forsaken, and then it's all over. And again, this happened in the second book as well, almost. They finally catch up to the Dark Friend. They catch the Horn of Valyr. They catch the Dark Friend, get the Horn of Valyr. There's a big battle about to brew, just like the first book. And they blow the Horn of Valyr, which was very cool to see, like Arthur Hawkwing come back and these great heroes. And they're about to battle and turn the tides for us. And Rand is about to fight Balsamon. He powers up and he's struggling to control the one power. And then we cut away and Rand wakes up. So all that final battle and all the cool stuff happened off screen. So we did get to see that one fight where Rand fought the other Swordmaster and he summoned the one power. And after getting pushed back and should you really have a Heron Mark blade? He starts channeling and is able to just push back the other Swordsmaster. But the last epic fight against, with the Heroes Reborn, the Heroes return with the Horn of Valyr, with Rand powering up to fight Balsamon again, just like last time. And then all of a sudden, we just wake up. So it all happened off screen, which is a little unsatisfying. But I guess at the same time, I can see that you don't want to, Robert Jordan doesn't want to show all his cards, and we got to save these cool fights for later in the series. So, the ending did wrap up quick. That's another criticism of the second book, though I didn't get that cool battles, but just keeps that air of mystery that maybe that's the point, that now I do want to see what happened. Are we going to get flashbacks to the next book and see all the things that transpired as Rand is learning more about his powers and he slave balls him on again like he thought the first time. So I'm sure he's not dead, that something's going to happen. We're introduced a little more of the Forsaken, Lanfear, who is aka Selene from the first book, or was the first book or earlier this book. So Selene was there, and then she comes back at the very end, and we're given a little more details of her. She was a very cool antagonist throughout the story, even though she was kind of a friend. We sort of knew that Selene was probably something going on with her because she acted super strange around Rand. But so she's Lanfear, and she keeps calling Rand Luce Theron, who is Rand's former incarnation. So there's a lot of cool those like that. Yeah, the larger story that we get glimpses of towards the end here. At the end, we're also told of the Black Aja, which when I was listening to it, I didn't really catch the references to Black Aja, but we're told as through the narrator that the Black Aja are definitely back. So maybe I kind of missed some of the parts where the Black Aja were in the White Tower and some of the behind the scenes thing, or it was just so quick that it was just like a subtle thing, and I guess I didn't miss it. But overall, I really enjoyed this one. It was another great story. I'm really digging the Wheel of Time. The second book, The Great Hunt, again another 5 out of 5. It was a great read, great story to get lost in the world and see this expanded world. So to summarize, this is again like the second book in a long series. So as the first book was the prologue, this was really starting to open up the world, and we see glimpses of the other cultures with the Shan army, with the Horn of Valir, all the things that happened as they kind of explore the land. So very cool to see. I can't wait to start the third one. I've got a million books in my TBR, to be read list, so I'm probably going to take a break from Wheel of Time and catch up on some other holds that I have on Libby, make some more videos on those. But I can't wait to get back to the third book of Wheel of Time. So really enjoyed it, and thanks for watching my review of The Great Hunt, Wheel of Time Book 2. Have a great one.